Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder, and this is the show that goes beyond the data to explore the people, the stories, and the insights that drive business success. Thanks for joining us today. So today's guest is a professional presence expert who helps leaders and their teams walk the walk, talk the talk, and look the part. I'm pleased to welcome Katherine Lazaruk, who's the founder and president of Lazaruk Consulting. She's also the author of the book, Executive Being, Humanizing Business One Leader at a Time. Katherine, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
Thanks, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
It's great to have you. We already had a lot of fun before we even hit the record button. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are, if you would.
That's always such a great question because I'm so many things. I think of that quote from The Devil's Advocate where Al Pacino's like, names. I have so many names. I am a shit disturber, essentially, which means I enjoy challenging the status quo, and I like to work with people who are also tired of what they're seeing in the world and would like things to change, but they understand that the only person you can change is yourself. And so they come to me for help with their identity. Who am I in this world? What am I here to do? And how can I help other people to come along with me? Because high tide floats all boats.
Yeah, really good. I like the way you describe yourself, but I introduced you as a professional presence expert. Tell the audience what that entails, besides disrupting people's shit.
Disrupting people's shit. I know, right? I say I'm professional presence expert, and I come right out of the gate with profanity. Excellent. It's interesting because
there's no rules here, and there's no judgment. So yeah,
it's true. It's interesting because professional presence is changing. It used to be that people would talk about your executive presence if you're a leader, particularly in the corporate space. And that would mean things like your gravitas. Do you show up and do people take you seriously? Are you wearing the right suit? Are you saying the right things? Do you have your good corporate poker face on? Do you have your mask on? Are you armored up? Are you keeping the personal and professional completely separate? All of those things are part of a really old model. And what I noticed when I was doing the research for my book is that many of the books that are being written about executive presence today are the same books that have been written 30 years ago. And what I aim to do with professional presence, it has everything to do with your appearance, behavior, and communication. So how do you show up? Because the look of you is an important tool for your communication and for your self-expression. How do you act? Do you actually walk the walk? And how do you communicate? And it could be communication all the way through your speaking voice. It could be communication in your writing. It can be communication simply by your being. How's your energy in a room? Are you the person who's the thermostat that sets the temperature for the room? Or are you the person who's the thermometer that's just reacting to whatever is going on in the room? And all of those things are part of your professional presence. And from my perspective, the personal and the professional are not different things. You're a complete and whole person. And the goal is to be integrated in yourself and to bring all of your whole self to work, because now what people are looking for in their leadership and in their employees are whole people, right? You have a personality, you have a life outside work, you are a complete and whole person, and we want you to bring all of your gifts to the table. So that's what I help people do. I help them to show up as completely present souls.
Yeah, and we're going to unpack all of this, including the book, in a little bit. But I just wanted to react to something that you said, because I remember back in the day when suits and ties were mandatory, and as I'm going to a meeting, it was imperative that I think through exactly how do I present myself. Is today the yellow tie day, or do I wear the red tie? What is that message? And oh my God, and how do you speak and all that? And nowadays, as you say, we're all supposed to show up as our whole authentic self, which is scary because we don't really know what that means as we show up. And nor do we know how our leaders are going to respond to us showing up. So when you talk about the whole person and whole presence, let's unpack that a little bit. What does that really mean, and why does it matter?
When I say whole person, whole presence, I don't mean that we lose all discretion. I don't mean that we have no privacy anymore. The way I think of it is this. If you think of yourself as a piece of stereo equipment or your iPod speaker, right? You're the same piece of equipment. You can choose to turn the volume up and you can choose to turn the volume down. But it's also, when you're in there, you're considering your situation. So what I mean is, so for example, I was facilitating a session for a group of tech execs in San Francisco. And one of the questions I asked them before we started the session was, what are you leaving behind today to be here in this room? And some of the things that they shared were really vulnerable. They talked about things like illness in the family, or they talked about children that they were missing because they were traveling so much. And they talked about all of these other pieces of our lives that we often try to just muscle through and forget about in order to stay focused in a meeting. And the energy in the whole room changed immediately, and everything softened, and everybody became just that much more tuned in to each other's energy and what everybody was bringing to the table. And then the work flowed really, really smoothly. I think when we try to ignore or repress those things, our energy is segmented and compromised because you're spending a bunch of energy trying to repress whatever's happening or suppress whatever's happening instead of just acknowledging it, letting it be present in the room and saying, hey, here's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's a great icebreaker. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen or heard that done before.
That's why they pay me the big bucks, Dave.
I may steal that from you at some point.
You can copy paste it as much as you like.
Appreciate that. I've heard you say often, actually, that image only matters where it matters. What does that mean?
Well, it's interesting that you said earlier when you were thinking about the suit and tie being mandatory, like red tie, yellow tie, this suit, that suit. What I believe is it really only matters where it matters, but where it matters, it really matters because we as human beings are meaning-making machines and we see everything through our own filters. So when you're going into a room where you're meeting people for the first time, where you're trying to persuade people of something, where you're trying to get a project done, the energy that you bring to it and the way that you show up there matters. And it is like what you wear is part of that. Like, how approachable do you want to be? Are you going to wear something more relaxed? How authoritative do you want to be? Are you going to wear something a bit more structured? Are you as a person, like, does your body and your coloring support something more structured or not? So you want to think about the level of congruence that you have. And there's a lot of data that we have now to support the fact that people will judge. When they see you, they're thinking about things like your level of intelligence. They think about how likable you are. They think about your socioeconomic status, if that's an important thing in the place where you're going. For example, if you're dealing with investor relations, where something like a display of status would be important, then maybe you want to wear the designer belt. Maybe you want to wear the designer suit. It can be like a little insider code. But if you're on the beach with your family, having a vacation, wear the bikini, wear the Speedo, get some sun on your skin. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Right? If you're in those moments with your friends at dinner and you're all hanging out and you're enjoying each other's company, it doesn't matter. Like, you need to be present in that moment. And absolutely, if you have paid attention to your image all the way along and you've front loaded your closet and you've figured out who you are as a person and you just show up, you kind of set it and forget it, great, even better. But really, I think this level of consciousness, this self-consciousness that people have is a little bit overblown, especially in the age of social media when everybody's like, oh my God, are they looking at me? It's like, no, they aren't. They aren't looking at you. And if they're looking at you and judging you for wearing a bikini with your belly hanging out at the beach, who cares? You're in the sunshine and it feels amazing. So just do that. But when you've got a big interview, when you got a meeting, pay attention.
Yeah, I agree 100%. My dad always told me, unless somebody else is paying your mortgage, who cares what they think?
I have a much ruder way of saying that, but yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, there was some colorful language that goes with that. I gave you the sanitized version. But it's interesting when you talk about image matters where it matters. There's a contradiction I just wanted to share with you because on Shark Tank, Robert Herjavec, I saw a recent article and quote where he was talking about beware the guy in the T-shirt. He was talking about Mark Cuban. Yeah. And, that's a place where image is supposed to matter. They're supposed to be buttoned up. Mm-hmm. But Cuban showed up apparently early with just T-shirts on. Yeah. And he didn't look the part and didn't have the same image. And Herjavec realized that he was really the most dangerous guy in the room.
Right. You know what's really interesting is there was a study that was done that showed that for men, image matters up to the point where you're earning about $250,000 a year. And after that, it doesn't matter, which is fascinating. So if you're under that income threshold and you want to be above that, then you want to think about the sharpness of your image. And after that, it doesn't matter as much, right? So
Yeah.
this is the other piece is I would love to live in a world where don't judge a book by its cover. It was actually true. But humans aren't wired like that. Like we literally, our brains grow like filing cabinets and it's all full of the stuff that our parents have told us and our culture tells us and social media tells us and our geography tells us. Like, for example, I live in Vancouver, Canada. It's very casual here. It's not the same. Like what you can wear here, you would never get away with in Europe. Like not a chance. Or New York even, right? So thinking about all those things. And it's interesting because we've also gotten a lot more casual, particularly with the pandemic, and we're all in everybody's bedrooms all of a sudden, or living rooms or houses, right?
Right.
Everybody's like, oh, you're a human. I'm a human. Okay. We don't have to think as much about this. So I sometimes lament the loss of the beauty and the ritual of dressing, but that's because I enjoy that ritual. But I also don't miss high heels and probably will never wear them again. So I think it really depends on your context. You know, it's interesting too, because you mentioned that like even Zuckerberg wore a suit before Congress when he had to testify, even though he wears t-shirts and hoodies all the time.
Right.
Right. And even in Canada here, our Pierre Poilievre, the opposition leader, or was the opposition leader until he lost his seat and is working to get back to it again. When he started campaigning, he changed his image. And I'm like, dude, that is completely incongruent. You are a Skippy with glasses and a suit. Just lean hard into being a conservative Skippy with the glasses and the suit because it's more believable than you suddenly trying to be relatable. Dude, don't do that.
Yeah. And the more you talk about this, the more I realize that we're all trying to be something that we're not. We're
Well,
supposed to live up to an image.
yeah.
The younger professionals are trying to look older and more mature.
Mhm.
The older professionals are trying to look younger and more hip. And nobody's seemingly comfortable in their own skin because of all the stuff that we've been told and the way we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And the truth is, you still are your best teacher. You know when you put something on, if it's right or it's not right. If you're in tune with that, and not everybody's been taught how to be in tune with that, because when kids are born, they're not thinking about what's my outfit looking like. They're taught how to look externally for validation and look externally for reinforcement of whatever it is they're doing. And still, I think one of the best things that I teach my clients is how to be self-sourced, how to connect to source, because no external mechanism is your source. No external mechanism is your energy supply. It's you and your connection to the world. And then from that place, what is right for you? And some of that is informed by your container, because in my opinion, the container that you arrived here on the planet in is the perfect container to do whatever it is you're meant to do on the planet. And the sooner you make friends with your container, the easier your life is going to roll. So if you're like me and you're short and round, just be short and round. Like I'm the perfect sidekick body. I'm like Shrek or Donkey in Shrek, right? I'm the little, doggy that's going along and making people laugh and also kicking people in the butt and being like, here, you need to be a little less serious about your life. And you need to be, it's interesting, you need to be less serious about your life, but you also need to take yourself seriously because we're all here to do something. We all chose
Yeah.
to be here at this particular time. So figure it out. And that's what I help a lot of people do.
Yeah, amen to that. I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously.
Exactly.
Let's unpack your book just a little bit, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
I'd love to.
Yeah, so chapter one, you slap us upside the head and you say, "Get real. There's a lot going wrong right now."
Right?
Uh, it's all downhill from there. Now, talk about that.
That's a resounding endorsement. Oh, chapter one, and then it's all downhill from here.
No, I'm kidding, of
Uh,
course. But the best part is that you do keep it real, and you're
yeah,
telling us to get real.
right. And I think what happens is we have this dichotomy of people going, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, when it's literally not fine. Everything is falling apart. Things are falling away. Structures are being challenged. And some of that I think is good because I think some of the structures that we were a part of are not great. Some of the hierarchy, some of those boxes that we were put in, some of the ways that we were, this is how you have to do it. And the truth is, we live in a world that was made for, designed by, works for men, because we live in a patriarchal system. It was made by men, it's for men. And it's great for men. So men, I don't know how much you know about hormonal operation, but for men operate on a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So their energy is the same all the time, every day. So at 6 a.m, your hormones are the same as 6 a.m. the next day. And so men are really great at production. They're super great at this sort of short-term energy action production. And so women get a bad rap in our world because women are seen as unpredictable, viewed through that lens. But women are incredibly predictable on a 28-day cycle. So for every phase of a woman's cycle, she has a different energy associated with that phase. And there are certain tasks that are better suited to one phase than another. So women are really great at long-term thinking, long-term planning, holding the container. And so because we're all operating under this structure where short-term is the focus, that's why all of our dishwashers break after 5 years now. Because people are like, we want the short-term gain. And in our leadership and in our businesses, we see this in our corporations. We're not thinking about the people. We're not thinking about the community necessarily. Not every business, of course. We're not thinking about those long-term gains. So when I say get real, I really want people to open their eyes. Look at what's happening. Look at your political situation. Look at your personal situation. And just accept. It's like, okay, here's where we're at. Is this the way we want it to be? Or is there something better that we could conceive of and build together? Because I got to tell you, like, the second coming is we're it. How else does anything get done on the planet? It's us. It's not coming to us. It's coming through us. Like, we're the ones that are here to make this transition. And we can choose to sit by and do nothing while short-term thinkers are in charge and are just destroying everything. Or we can say, hey, wait a minute, we would still like to be around over the longer term. We would like people to work together. We would like to have balanced leaders in place, people who think about the long term and aren't just thinking about their political career or their CEO bonus. We would like people who are thinking more broadly. And we still need people who are great short-term producers. We need those startup people. We need people who can get things going and fire it up. And we need people who can sustain the slow burn. And when I say men and women, every person has masculine and feminine tendencies in them. We've just labeled them masculine and feminine. So I don't mean to say like men are this way and women are that way, right? People have these tendencies and we all need to bring these things back into balance. So when I say get real, I'm like, just open your eyes, look around. Don't live in a fantasy.
Yeah, you said at the top of that about people thinking everything's all right. And I learned a new phrase or term just recently called toxic positivity.
Yeah, right? Yes. La, 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 la. Like,
Yeah.
everything is fine. Like, no, it isn't. You can feel it in your body. You know. So let's just go, okay, this isn't right. What am I going to do? And what are we collectively going to do? It's not just about, like, people are like, oh, this is just the way it is. I'm like, well, who do you think creates society, dum-dum? Like, it's us. We decide.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do?
We're going to talk about the whole self a little bit further. I'm
Sure.
skipping around in your book because I'm managing the clock and managing conversation because I have so much I want to cover with you. And I'm not trying to rush you because if you have a few minutes and we need to go over, I'm cool doing that. But the whole self, and when we're told about being authentic and showing up as we are, that includes tattoos, maybe a purple streak in the hair, imperfections in the way we speak. Talk about all of those human elements and how employees are supposed to show up at work, how leaders are supposed to perceive them.
It's very interesting because I think in this situation, what's happening, particularly for my more established leaders, people who have been in the businesses a long time, have a certain way of thinking and doing things, they are having the most trouble right now, I would say, because the cognitive dissonance of this used to work for me and now it's not working and these people are showing up this way and I don't know what to do with that is kind of scary. which is why I think we're seeing such a backlash and such a like digging in on this is the way it has to be. You have to wear a suit. You cannot wear tattoos. You have to like, because of this fear of, I don't know how to manage a boardroom table or an office of people who have a certain level of freedom. And I think the onus in this case is on the more established leaders to work harder to understand what other people are valuing. Because people that are coming into the workplace, in my experience, with tattoos and purple hair, and it's irrelevant if you have tattoos and purple hair. Are you getting the job done? Are you contributing to the goals of the company? Whether you're remote or you're in the office, this is the other piece that I hear a lot, is companies are doubling down on getting back in the office because the older generations experience the value of having people together in a group. But what they're failing to see is that there are many ways to get people together in a group that aren't related to having somebody in a cubicle for 8 hours a day. But because they don't know any other way to do it, they're reverting. So this is the way it was. That was fine for me. Let's do it that way. And I have said very often to my clients that are over 50, I would say, if you don't have a mentor under 30, you are missing out. You're irrelevant. And the speed of change has never been this fast. It's never going to be this slow again. And I think it's hard for more established leaders to keep up. They're still trying to operate from this old paradigm. So yes, whole self involves self-expression, and it's on the more established leaders to learn how to feel their feelings, to talk about things, to see people for who they are and look past. Can you look past this person's tattoos? That's your bias, not their tattoos. That's a you problem.
Yeah, and I like what you said about having a mentor under 30 or you become irrelevant. That's a great point. Really is, for so many reasons.
Thank you.
I remember earlier in my career, we talk about tattoos and purple hair and so forth. Even just having facial hair was taboo. Because if you walked into a meeting and you had any kind of hair on your face, people would judge you. Like, really?
Yeah, they did. Well, they've done studies on perception of facial hair. So people, quote unquote, people with facial hair were perceived as less trustworthy than people that were clean shaven. And I'm sure there's some historical root for that. I don't know, maybe people were hiding knives in their beards. I have no idea. I don't know, way back when. But there was this perception. But now we're also starting to see culture change again. So like Ted Lasso, for example, he has that huge, what is that, like the mustache that he wears.
Right.
Now people are going, oh, so here's someone who is agreeable and lovable and fantastic and has this crazy mustache. And the range of expression is broadening. And I am really grateful for all of the people that are over 50 or over 60 or over 70 or over 80 or 90 that are embracing the change, that are saying, okay, this is like a new world. How do I get involved in this? What do I do? What can I let go of? And the people that are doing the best at embracing it are the people who are enjoying the lessening of the restriction. They've managed to regulate their bodies, their nervous systems. They've managed to say, I'm still safe, even if I'm not wearing a suit. And I really have a lot of compassion and empathy for leaders over 50 who had the safety of those other structures. And now that that's not there, they're working really hard to stay safe in themselves so they can provide safety for their companies and teams and people that they work with.
I'm curious to get your take on the return to office. You mentioned about the recurring mandates now, it seems, where companies are requiring people to come back to the office. My personal take on it from my own personal experience, beliefs, and talking to a lot of folks about this subject, is that the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
I think we've learned that we can trust our people to work remotely. I think the employees expect to be able to have that sort of flexibility. But I also think that there's something to be said for being in the office and enjoying the camaraderie of a corporate culture, with the emphasis that if it exists, because I hear way too many stories about people showing up to work and they're sitting in their cubicles or their offices on Zoom calls with other colleagues who aren't in the office, and they're not experiencing what they were told they were going to get.
That's right. I agree with you. It is somewhere in the middle. What I really, talk to a lot of my clients about and encourage people not to do is to force 5 days a week in the office. That is, companies are losing really good talent because they hire and promise remote. And then they're like, nope, sorry, you got to move. You got to either move your city or you got to commute now for 2 hours, and they're losing really good people. But I also think too that the companies are not necessarily providing enough motivation for people to actually get together. So as you say, there's no point in having somebody in a cubicle on a Zoom call. The point is to say, okay, everybody, we know that there is value in human interaction. We know that there's value in being together. So how do we find a spot for us all to be together in the office and not on Zoom? And does that mean then that we spend a little bit more money flying in some people that are in other cities? And do we do this on a regular basis so that we can get together and see each other? Because it is true, you will never get to know somebody digitally the way you get to know them in person, because we're being filtered through camera lenses, we're being filtered through machinery, and the energy, you can get a sense of it, but it's never the same as meeting somebody in person. So I agree that it's definitely in the middle somewhere. And I still think the onus is on the companies to figure out ways to talk to their employees and find out what would be the best way for us to interact. We know that there's value here. Let's work together to find a solution to get us all together when we need to, and then work asynchronously when we don't.
Yeah. And team building efforts, just to touch on that for a quick second. How many times have you been to a team building exercise where people were in silos? They're sitting with their same groups, and there's no, we'll call it cross-pollination or interactions with others in the organization.
Well, not in my team building activities. That's
Yeah.
the first thing I do is break up the silos. That was one of the things I found most frustrating when I was in the corporate world, when I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, was that silos wouldn't talk to each other. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is very dysfunctional. We're a whole company. We actually need to talk to each other. But yes, I have participated a long time ago in activities where it's like, I can talk to all of these people every day. I want to talk to people that I don't talk to on a regular basis. So in team building, I think companies also need to make an effort to deliberately put people from different parts of the company together, because all those people on different parts of the company have a different perspective than you will have. And their perspective can inform the work that you're doing, because you're theoretically working as a single entity towards a single set of goals together, and having people in silos to do that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Catherine, I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have a few minutes if
I
we go a
do.
little bit longer?
Dave, I
Cool.
made time for you today.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what some of the biggest challenges are that your clients are facing.
Well, the biggest one, as I mentioned earlier, is the cognitive dissonance, right? It's like, I'm an experienced leader. What do I do now? That's the biggest challenge. I would say the second biggest challenge is this authenticity piece, because people are afraid to look weak. They're afraid that their reputation will be damaged if they show up or say the wrong thing. There's not a lot of trust, that, and for good reason, right? A lot of the people that I work with are women. They've come up in male dominated environments and they've been burned. So it's hard for them then to say, okay, I'm going to try again and trust that whatever I'm doing now is going to provide the result that I want, which is connection with people. But I can tell you that when these leaders, men and women, move into a space of interpersonal relationship with the people that they're working with, their results are extraordinary. People work harder for them, and not grind, but people are inspired. They pull people along in their tide. They're not forcing anybody to do anything. And I think because we're moved, like the model used to be hierarchical, authoritative, compartmentalized. And now it's integrated, relational, and whole. So this cross-pollination, like when someone who's a C-suite leader speaks to a frontline person, like the receptionist, and knows their name and knows things about them. And not every you can't do that with every company, because some companies are too big. But when leaders make a real effort to actually be personally involved in things and share their own personal struggles, that makes a massive difference. And it's really hard for people that have been used to masking up for years. So I think those are kind of the two biggest struggles. And then
Yeah.
also the values piece, like, oh, I'm confronted with employees that don't value what I value and I don't understand them and I don't like the results they're producing, but I don't know how to talk to them to figure out how we can get the results we want, without being overly directive or overly permissive. It's the same thing as parenting, right? Really, most adults are really just children inside. Like, we're not a very emotionally mature society. And so I think what people forget is that we're sensitive little souls. Like, inside, we look like grown-ups, but there's all kinds of behavior going on under the surface that's being driven by childhood experiences. And I think one of the best things that leaders can do is actually stop, tune in, pay attention to their own, like, think, okay, what's this behavior? I have some pattern in my past that's driving this behavior. What is that? How do I fix that? What do I look at to change how I'm behaving, and then changing it? And that's sort of incumbent on everybody, because it's not your fault what you came into the world with, right? Whatever childhood you had, whatever experiences you had that shaped you, that's not your fault. But it is 100% your responsibility to do something about it, right? You can't just say, well, I was treated poorly as a child, so I'm just going to treat everybody poorly around me. That's not how it works, right? It's your job to fix those things so that you can function and be a functional person instead of a dysfunctional person in your organization.
Yeah, a lot of things that you just shared there resonated. A couple things in particular. The masking up thing. I had somebody on the program not too long ago who was recounting a story of an executive leader that they were working with who was considered to be less than human at their
Yeah.
organization.
Oh
And the
my God.
example was his assistant was going on vacation. He didn't even bother to ask her how the vacation was.
Mm-hmm.
His view was that's too personal, it's too sharing. And her view was he doesn't give a rip about me.
Yeah, he doesn't
So,
care.
yeah, at the end of the day, people are people. We're human. We want to
Yes.
be treated as such. And when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about the results, you know that I've written a few books about the value that people contribute to a business enterprise. And
Yeah.
I've shared my own personal story and my journeys. And the leaders that treated me with respect, courtesy, dignity, empathy, all the human stuff,
Mm.
I'd walk through walls for them.
Absolutely. 100%. I know many leaders like that, where I'm like, yeah, I am ride or die for you because you care about me and you show that you care. And it's not fake. Like, it's actually interesting. I've heard some leaders get a bad rap, like when they start trying this and people are judgy about it. They're like, oh, they're being so fake. They're, now I don't believe what they're saying and I don't believe what they're doing. It's like, can you just give them a break and celebrate the fact that they're trying? Just let them try. And of course, it might feel a little forced, or maybe they're not very good at it. But who's good at anything when they start doing anything? No one. Right?
Right.
We all suck a little bit. So let your leaders suck too. Let them try. Give
There you
them the
go.
grace to try.
There you go. The new motto for today is let's all try to suck less.
Try to suck less. Come on.
That's it. So you've shared a couple of tips. We're getting close to the end here. I'm going to let you go soon, but you've shared a couple of tips already, but I'm going to ask you if there's any, call it, final thoughts, final words that you want to share with the audience, and things that we all can do to be better selves.
Well, I think that it all starts with who you are as a person, your character. So when I think about my 3 C's framework, which is character, congruence, and choice, it really starts with you having deep knowledge of who you are, what drives you, what you're meant to do on the planet, what you like, what you don't like. Like, I really think it's important for people to have some self-examination. And then when I think about the congruence piece, I think it's important for people also to have some sensitivity to the environment. You don't live in a vacuum. You live in a culture, you live in a country, you live in a city, you live in a continent, you live in the world. Have some consciousness for what else is going on around you, and think about how you're vibing with it. Like, what's the resonance? Where do you need to push a little? Where do you need to lay back a little? How do you get along? Like, it's the congruence piece, and figure out for yourself in your own expression, how much do I want to challenge the status quo and how much do I want to conform to the status quo? And that's the choice part always of anything with your image, anything with your identity, anything with your professional presence, your executive presence. It's always a choice. You always have a choice. So even though they might be two bad choices, at least you have a choice. And then it's just this thing about moving us more and more closely together. And it sounds kind of cliche. People are like, you need to focus on more of what you have in common than what you don't. And I think that's really true. And I think what people miss is that they disown the things in themselves that they see in others. So for example, if you don't like the cruelty of what a leader is doing, whether it's a political leader or a executive leader, if you don't like the cruelty of what's happening, you also have to admit that that cruelty lives in you. Those people wouldn't be leaders if we all didn't have an element of shadow cruelty in ourselves. And I think one of the biggest things that people can do is make friends with their own dark and clean up that shadow stuff, like that stuff that your subconscious really wants and really likes. You really like the drama, or you really like the violence, or makes you feel excited. And if you just disown that and say, la, 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 I'm a peace-loving person, it's like, we have all these facets as humans. And if you disown something, then it blows up and becomes all of a sudden major conflict in the world, right? We all contribute our energy to this. So you clean up your side of the sidewalk, you clean up your own energy, you get your connection to source, you get your connection to other people. And that's how the world changes. Through like one cell at a time, the body can change. And we are a collective body in the world. We're not alone. So we need to stop acting like we're alone.
Yeah, well said. And I joked with you before we went on the air about being woo-woo and so forth. But I told you I'm a little woo as well, and I get it. And we are all energetic beings.
Yeah,
and we are all connected. So
we are.
Tell people how they can find you if they want to learn more about you, want to work with you, or just want to have a fun conversation with you like this.
I am easy to find. Katherine Lazaruk, Lazaruk, or Lazaruk for my American friends. And you can find me on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Those are the two places where I'm posting most often. And I would love for you to reach out. Like, I know sometimes you hear somebody on a podcast and they're like, they say you want to reach out, but they won't really. But I really will. You DM me and I will answer.
And I'm guaranteeing you a fun conversation when Katherine responds to you. Katherine, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really, really a great conversation. I appreciate being here.
You are welcome. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you out there for listening and supporting this program. I really appreciate your support. Can't do this program without you. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please think about leaving us a review on Spotify or Apple. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you never miss another episode. Until next time, I am Dave Bookbinder, and I'm reminding you that the numbers tell the story, but the people bring it to life. Take care, everybody.